Remember to live each day with the aim of becoming better and not bitter. All right, guys. So thank you for being here. And I'm excited because we have another special guest. I have known him since 2013, I believe, and he is a dope creator, among many other things. But I'll let him introduce himself. Welcome, bro.
Thank you very much. Again, this is JNW Boss. How you guys doing? I am happy. I'm honored. I was telling before, I got super excited whenever she invited me. I'm like, yeah, okay, this is gonna be cool. And seeing the work of the Better Not Bitter podcast, it's been just from the great guests you've had, from the stuff I've learned. It's been great. It's been amazing. I'm just happy to be here. Thank you once again for the invite. Thank you.
No problem, fam. Thank you for being here. So we're gonna jump right in. Obviously, the title of this podcast is called "Bringing the Smackdown to Vision Impairment." Before we break down the smackdown, let's talk about the vision impairment aspect. So, what specifically is your vision impairment called, and what is it like for you?
Okay, so for me, I was born with retinopathy of prematurity. And essentially, for me, I have no sight at all in my right eye. In fact, I actually have a detached retina in my right eye. The retina in my left eye is hanging in there, and thank the Lord I'm able to see as well as I do. And I have a buckle in both eyes. So when it comes to how I am day to day, it's great. I'm actually able to get around relatively well. I do have a white cane. It's off in the corner over there, but I do have a white cane, so I tend to bring that out if I'm like in public, or if I'm in, or not necessarily in public. If I'm like going somewhere, a bit unfamiliar to me, I'll bring it out there. But other than that, I get around well and do the best that I can.
Hey, that's dope. I too, as you know, we were both trained in the white cane around the same time.
Absolutely.
So we both use it whenever necessary. And
Absolutely.
when there are spaces that are familiar, I don't really need it. But put me in somewhere like New York City. Oh, it's coming out.
It's coming out. Let's go. Like we're here. We're here with like Inspector Gadget type stuff.
Yeah. So to piggyback off of that, what was it like for you when RP started to develop? Did it develop early on or at birth?
This was at birth. This was at birth, and going through, I guess, kind of segue a little bit. Going throughout life. Initially, it was. I would say I've always had confidence, but like growing up, I did have to deal with bullying and stuff. People making fun of it or whatever the deal, and it did lower my self-esteem in myself, admittedly. So, but now I kind of go through. Fast forward to now, I do kind of go through life knowing that okay, I can do one of two things. I can, understand that hey, this is what I have, this is what I'm given with, and let's make the most out of it. Or I can, be, mad and angry and bitter of the world, but what's the purpose of doing that? I'm here for a reason, I'm here for a purpose. I'm still able to do a lot of the things that I want to do. So, instead of sitting around being, bitter about it, let's make the most of it. Make the most of it,
Hey, I agree with you on that. You mentioned bullying, and I know a lot of folks who go through that who have a disability, but it's different from everyone. How did you navigate that time where people just really were ignorant, didn't understand?
It wasn't difficult. It was difficult, and it was frustrating because they're making fun of something that like you got no physical control over. You know what I mean? So it was difficult from that sense, and it was emotionally frustrating to deal with. But again, that was when not like I was a kid, mainly. Now I grow up and realize, okay, if that's the only thing that people can find to make fun of me, then I enjoy toot my own horn, but I must be a pretty good person if that's the only thing that you can find to make fun of me about. So I don't really get
Mhm.
that now, fortunately, since I tend to hang around mature people, and if you bring in negative energy, I ain't here for it. Um, that's real. That's real. You bring in
I
negative
know it's
energy, I'm
real.
not
That's why
here
I
for it.
laugh.
But it was just mostly difficult back then, admittedly. But,
I bet. I bet. Well, I appreciate you sharing that.
yeah,
And I kind of wanted to talk about that because it's something a lot of people don't think. I think being visually impaired, unlike total blindness,
right,
it's often invisible to people. Like if you were to look
right.
at me, unless you see me looking at my phone or reading,
Mm-hmm.
it would be
Mm-hmm.
pretty difficult to kind of just
Right.
say, "Oh, she must be visually impaired," you know.
Yeah, that's
Um,
true.
and there are a ton of individuals who are visually impaired. Over 239 million individuals worldwide who
Wow.
have some degree or will experience some degree of vision impairment. So
Wow.
I think talking about these things kind of brings visibility to what's not seen, pun
Right.
intended.
True, true, true. And to
So,
kind of go ahead.
oh no, go ahead.
Okay, I was gonna say to kind of piggyback on what you were saying. Yeah, I've actually experienced instances where because of how well I got around, it took someone either noticing how I was looking at my phone
Hmm.
or like I have no peripheral either. So I've had moments where I've accidentally like bumped into someone who was on my right side who I legit didn't know they were there, and they go like they get all mad. They're like, "Oh, what's the matter? You blind or something?" I'm like, well, technically, yeah, but I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna stop it. And I've had moments where I'm looking at my phone, and I've had people go to me be like, "Hey, I might want to back up your phone a bit." Well, kind of, can because yeah, but I don't get mad at instances like that. I don't get mad at instances like that. It's like, okay, they don't know. They don't
Yeah.
know. That's
I
fine.
think for me, when those moments happen, especially like when I'm looking at my phone,
Mm-hmm.
or something like that, I'm usually I'm not thinking about the fact that I'm visually impaired,
No.
if that makes sense.
Right.
I
Right.
think
And
because I've learned to accommodate myself to the point where it's my normal. And so
right.
when people are like, uh, you need help? Are you okay? Or things like that. I'm like, it jogs my memory, like, oh wait, you're visually impaired, you're looking close at your phone.
Yeah.
They don't know what that means. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
definitely
So,
hear you. It's definitely an opportunity to educate folks.
right.
um, so obviously we've talked about your vision impairment, but
Mm.
I'm curious to know in school, what type of supports you had as a result of vision impairment, like elementary school, middle school, high school, and undergrad,
Yeah. Yeah.
and even now graduate school.
Yeah. So the type of support I've had, I've always had like, and again, can you help me out? Define support a little bit if you can. Or what
So
do you mean by support
support,
with the question?
accommodations,
Oh, okay, okay,
yeah.
accommodation stuff like that. I've always there was a few pretty common accommodations I've had. I would say testing in a separate setting,
Mhm.
with like larger print as I got older. As I got older for college, it was like being able to type out stuff, like even stuff that was like supposed to be written. Eventually, have
Mhm.
that way I'm able to like type out my stuff and type out my answer because my handwriting, sheesh, it ain't it. Um, so it was stuff like that. I remember I even had a smart pen in undergrad, and I'm just listing off like just um some of the ones I remember having, and of course I was always in your contact with my disability service office when I was in college, and with my teachers and professors. I've always been sure to, well, I'm going to say this wonderful word again, self advocate for myself and say, hey, okay, I need to, I would ask them, hey, if there's something I can do, if I can move forward or whatever, whatever, whatever. And a lot of the times I have had teachers who were like really, really accommodating. So it was great. I've had the general support of my teachers and, specialists and things of that nature as well. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. To your point about separate setting testing, like that was an accommodation I had. And for those who don't know what that is, it's where um the person who has a disability, be it maybe ADHD or being visually impaired, you have the opportunity to take your test either in the disabilities office, in a room where you're by yourself and you have all your devices that you need, or in a separate classroom where nobody's in it.
right,
Just basically, you're not taking it in the same area where the class is. And this is important because there's so much pressure as a person
right,
with a yeah,
right.
there's pressure as someone who is a VIP, very visually impaired person, to finish something as quick as your peers, not be the last person to finish the
Yeah.
test, because you know what happens. Everybody be looking at you like,
What this dude
hurry
still
it up,
taking it
slowpoke.
for?
Yeah. Can you talk about moments where you felt that pressure?
I think I remember. I think it wasn't until I want to say maybe middle school that accommodation was put in place because it was kind of like that. Like I remember I was be in the classroom and I'm sitting up front, so
Mhm.
can't miss me. And I'm sitting there taking my test, and all of a sudden I'm hearing people putting their bags up and unzipping stuff, and I'm looking around like, okay, let me go ahead and hurry up here. And so eventually realized, okay, let's put them in a separate setting because I think it was like my test scores weren't doing the best, kind of due to
Mhm.
me rushing this that, and the third, and the extra time thing, which was needed as well. So I was put in a separate setting, and instantly I felt like I can work my own pace now. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, it was. I agree. There's the general pressure of feeling like, okay, let me get this done. I ain't trying to hold nobody up. Let me not be that guy. And so, yeah, separate setting was definitely like one of the best testing accommodations I've had personally.
Yeah, I definitely can relate. Like I remember, like there's always that one memory of certain situations that sticks in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a freshman in high school, and I was in a marketing class because I love marketing and all that jazz.
Okay, cool.
And it was the final. Everybody's at the computer, and I'm going at the pace I can go. And mind you, this is during the time where migraines are just starting to become a part of the picture.
Right.
So I'm fatiguing really quickly. Next thing I know, I hear zzz, zzz, shuffle, 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 shuffle. And I look, no kidding, I'm not even making this up. Everybody in that room, except for my teacher, was turned around in their chair watching me, waiting for me to
Word.
finish the test.
Word.
Oh, it was like one of the most like frustrating and embarrassing
Right.
moments. So when I finally got separate setting, it was a game changer for me.
And true, man. And that's a good thing that accommodation like that exists because at the end of the day, you shouldn't feel, you shouldn't have to feel pressure to finish just because of what other people are going to think, what other people are going to say. Because at the end of the day, that's your grade that you're
Mhm.
going to get, not theirs.
Mhm.
So I don't get why people felt the need to turn around and look because I'm going at my own pace. You're going to get the grade you get. I'm going to get the grade I get. But to
Exactly.
eliminate that pressure from myself, let me take it somewhere else.
Yeah, yeah, and even just the idea of that pressure in that instance
Right.
kind of plays into something that a lot of people who have a disability or even a chronic illness experience, and that is the feeling of being a burden, and the need to accommodate others at the expense of your own needs. And it's a legitimate thing. Like even if something is testing, like I felt the need to accommodate their impatience because I was
Right.
like, oh, I got a disability. Let me hurry up.
Right.
But now I'm at a place where y'all gonna sit there and wait. But thankfully I
Exactly.
got separate testing.
Right. Right. Another
And
another one. I'm not sure. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm gonna cut your card.
oh, go ahead.
Okay. Another one I just thought of that I had. I don't know if you have this uh scribe in particular for those little Scantron sheets.
Oh, yeah. One of my accommodations was that I didn't do that. My
Same.
teacher or TA did.
Same. because I've had instances where like I got questions wrong because I've marked um one bubble in the wrong thing. So writing on tests as well is another one. Writing on
Yeah,
tests.
I especially in college,
Oh yeah.
that was one of the roughest things.
Yeah.
Um, would be feeling the pressure to do that to accommodate a professor at
Yeah.
times. Although I didn't do that because my
I never did
accommodation
that.
letter says for me not to do
I
that.
never did that with
And
you.
yeah, yeah, and ours were red. I don't know what color A&T uses, but ours were red. And red is one of those colors in ink that I have trouble seeing really well in terms of reading things. So that was a no-no to begin with.
Understandable. Understandable.
Yeah, yeah. So we've talked about how accommodations impact your life, but I want to know, that word, that golden word. I want to know about your experience with self-advocacy and how it has played a role in pretty much everything that you do.
Self advocacy has always been very important. I mean, very important throughout my life because again, given that again, I don't look like I have a visual impairment. I don't look like it. I have a visual impairment if you see the way I walk around. So indicating to a teacher that hey, I'm gonna need a little bit of assistance here, or hey, this is too small. Can this be enlarged real quick? Or you know, or and making sure that is taking place. And especially when I got to it was learning, I guess, learning how to do that at a certain point throughout middle school and high school, and with assistance from what I learned from the Savvy program. Given that self advocacy was heavily taught, which is great because it was definitely needed. Um, and especially going into college, knowing that okay, now I'm gonna have to do this on my own. And so I was always sure to alert my professors, and say, hey, my name is Jeff. Give my name and everything. Say I'm visually I'm getting a bit too comfortable. This is my, visually, visually
Ooh.
impaired. I am going to be speaking with the Disability Service Office, and I'll be sure to get you the accommodation letter. Da, 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 da. And interesting, I've actually had a professor who completely understood and was like, "Oh, dude, in the same boat, been in the same boat with you." I'm like, "Word, okay." So it was also cool to have some professors who were able to relate in a way with the things that were going on. So, and if I didn't, I was feeling like it would have been a rough time for me throughout college and throughout certain aspects of life. So definitely speak up, say something, please. It'll work for you in the long run. It'll work in the long run. I promise you.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely agree. Um, because sometimes there is a temptation, like, oh, I gotta do this again. I gotta
Gotta go
remind
through
them again.
all this again.
Yeah, but in the long run, when you don't, and I've experienced this many times, when you
Mhm.
don't self-advocate because of just fatigue from self-advocating or your frustration or whatever, it only adds to the frustration and misunderstandings and
Right,
breakdowns in communication. Because
right.
I've had several instances where I was like, man, I'm tired, and then, ooh, I
Mhm.
should have just kept going.
Right, right.
So I think self-advocacy is really important. Um, speaking to what J Dog Nation said in the comment section about him
What up,
having an
bro?
invisible condition. First, shout out to you and thank you for your comment. And I see the rest of yous. Thank you for being here. But to his point about having an invisible condition, it's Crohn's disease, chronic migraine, vision impairment. All of them fall into something called a category of invisible disabilities.
Mhm.
And the interesting thing is that when you have an invisible disability or a condition, it requires a lot more explanation. It requires a lot more patience because you're dealing with people who just don't get it because they don't
Right.
see it. You get the, oh, you look fine, or oh, you look like you can see,
You
um,
ain't blind for real.
oh, yeah. And,
I've had people say that, and I'm like,
Yeah, and I'm increasingly becoming more graceful towards people who are just ignorant. And then, like I always say, I draw the line at disrespect. So I
Right.
definitely hear you and feel what you're saying, J Dog, and I appreciate you for sharing that. Hey Cheyenne, and let's see, A1, what's up? Nice to see you guys and have you a part of this conversation. So we've talked about vision impairment, we've talked about accommodations and self advocacy. Now we're gonna get into the nitty gritty of things.
All right.
Okay.
Yep.
So it's one thing to be a content creator. And for those of you who don't know what a content creator is, it's someone who uses their creativity, whether it be marketing, graphic design, communication, and you combine all those things to create things that educate people, things that people enjoy. And one of the most popular forms of content creation is being an influencer on social media platforms, or having a YouTube channel, or a blog, those types of things. And that is a job in and of itself, whether you get paid or not. There's so many components to that, even for someone who doesn't have a disability. I'm curious to know um, what it has been like for you as a YouTuber. For those who don't know, Boss is a YouTuber of 8 years, and his channel features a lot of dope content, but I'll let him tell you that as he answers this question.
Okay. So as a content, it's crazy because the content creator who's like visually impaired is admittedly it's something that I've never just brought up on my channel. I don't know why. I just haven't. You
Hmm.
know, it's just something that I haven't done. And so uh, being a content creator that's visually impaired, I think is pretty cool, admittedly. And yeah, it does take a minute. It probably does take me a little bit longer to do to do some of the editing stuff than it may take, someone who's well sighted. It may take a little bit longer than that. But I think the fact that I'm able to do this, I've been doing this for 8 years, and I've been doing my niche in particularly for about 5 years. Well, I'm sure we'll get into that.
Hmm.
It's been cool. It's been cool. I don't really feel like due to my visual impairment it has stopped me or swayed me from doing the this YouTube thing. I believe anybody who's anyone, if you got the willpower and you got the capability, regardless of your condition, to want to put something out there to the world, put it out there. You know what I mean? Put it out there. And admittedly, there are things that you can learn uh, to do even with a visual impairment. Like I'll shout this wonderful friend out here sent me a great video on Photoshop, how to do Photoshop, as for someone with visual impairment. So stuff like that, I believe it's possible. Anyway, girl.
Yeah. I appreciate the shout out.
Okay.
And I know for me, as a content creator who's visually impaired, um, I think for me it's become a form of therapy. I don't know how to describe it. Like when I'm creating, that's when I'm at my best. And so I don't really think about, hey, I'm visually impaired. Although
Right,
I do take into the account, like, okay, I'm visually impaired, but I want my content to be so polished that people don't even know I'm visually impaired.
right,
And so that makes them ask me about my vision, and then I get a chance to educate, navigate.
right. And I say in agreement to that, it's like you definitely want to do the best that you can. I mean, regardless of your condition, I believe anyone can, if they again get to know how and stuff, they can learn, make tremendous content regardless of their condition.
Yeah,
Man.
yeah. Speaking of content, why don't you tell the good people of the internet what type of content you feature on your channel?
Okay, so I feature a variety of things. I guess I'll jump to the main thing that you will see is even pinned. I even have a video of that sort pinned to my comment section or pinned to my top of my page. I do WWE 2K games content, particularly what is known as a universe mode. So essentially, What I've done, I have three of them, and what I do, I have two which are known as call shows, aka shows that feature created wrestler, created people from myself and all across the world. And then I have one that is based off TNA, which was an actual wrestling company at the time. They're now known as Impact Wrestling, and that's where I use a lot of just the in-game people. And so with these universe modes, I create a show out of it. So I create something like you would watch if you were to watch an actual professional wrestling show. So with storyline, with championship, with graphics, I've created arenas, video packages, all of that sort. I've essentially create a wrestling show in the confines of a video game. As crazy as that's not.
It's awesome. First of all, me being a creator, like I know the amount of effort it requires to do all of that. And like one, your graphics are always fire and the content is always fire and interesting. But like the amount of focus and like forethought it takes to put an entire show together, especially for wrestling. Like
Yeah.
wrestling is one of those things like if you don't have a good storyline,
People
people
ain't
don't care.
going right.
You know,
People ain't gonna tune
like
in.
people
People ain't
don't
gonna
care.
check into it. Right.
But it's the storyline that draws people in. So you're really good at creating storylines that draw people in. And
Thank you.
um, man, I think there's only good things ahead for your channel.
Thank you.
Uh, and one of the things that I've always been interested in is, how you're able to, how can I say it, create content
Mm-hmm.
at a consistent level. Could you talk about how consistency has been something that you focus on?
It's great that you say that because, like, consistency, I personally feel it's not really been my strong suit, but I guess to kind of answer your question to the best of my ability there, I think that, especially, let me speak on the confines of these shows here. I'm always like looking forward, or like the way I typically do things. If I put a show together, I get it recorded, edited, do all the magical stuff within the editor. I put it out there, and then not long after I put that out there, I'm already like mentally like, okay, I know what the next show is on the lineup. Let me go ahead and get the script ready for this.
Yeah.
And so after I get the script ready, after changing it about 5 to 10 times in between, I finally sit down and record these shows, and we push forward. So that's like my main thing. That's something I'm always trying to work on, and I do have other types of content. Like I do have a podcast of my own, JNW versus the world. I'm looking to get more consistent with that because I actually do have a few ideas now and stuff. But I think when it comes to consistency, is something I still try to work on. I'm not where I want to be as far as that goes, but I think it
hmm
definitely helps out with uploading content and being a content creator.
I definitely hear that. And consistency is kind of, most people think it's more so objective. I think it's more so subjective in terms of your level of consistency is not going to be my level of consistency.
Right.
And I think Mr. Beast said, someone asked him how often should someone upload, and he said as often as you can put out quality content.
That's true. That
And
is absolutely
so
true.
yeah, ever since I heard that, I'm like, okay, well, even if I'm not putting 10 videos up this month, like, are the 5 or 2 videos I'm uploading quality things that if I saw it I would want to watch.
Right.
um and it's always kind of difficult with my niche because I'm creating a new niche,
Yeah.
and you know people's attention spans is something you have to contend with, as
Oh,
well as not everybody's interested in like these type of things. So
absolutely.
making sure that the people who do uh find interest in it are entertained and like get something out of it is really
Right.
important to me. So I definitely can relate to that.
Right. And I can relate as well. I can actually provide a little bit of example here. So if you all were to check out the channel, you notice a lot of length of these shows are about like hour and a half, close to 2 hours as far as lengthwise. So I know that, and I have trouble keeping up with other, content creators that do the same thing as I do. You know what I mean? I have trouble doing the same thing, and so shoot, that was the point I was going to make, and I lost it completely. Hold on, hold on. Let me go
Take your time. Take your
Thank you.
time, as they say in the church. Take your time.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, with the stuff that quality, bingo. So with the stuff that I do, yeah, it's about an hour and a half, 2 hours, something long, and it's only me, and it's a solo thing. Some
Mhm.
people that do the content creation stuff, especially the long form stuff, it's a solo thing. So of course you're working on it by yourself, and it may take you a little bit longer because it's just you, as opposed to some who may have, other help and things of that nature. So yeah, you may not get, with me, you may not get two or three, you may not get all three shows within 1 month. You may get like one show 1 month, a couple of small videos and stuff I may do here and there, and then it may be like another month or so before you see another show. But every time I put one out, I always make sure it's good, it's up to snuff. Even though I'm my own worst critic, I'm working on that. You make sure what you do is like at least visually and audibly good. People are going to have their opinion. Let them have their opinion. But if you're putting out genuinely good work, I believe people are going to come by, check it out, and see it.
Yeah, yeah. And that's a good point. Like, there's a fine line between, what you do and what someone else is doing and
Right.
how they do it. And I think when, because my podcast isn't just me having guests on there all the time. There are podcast episodes where it's just me.
Right.
And I do that intentionally because I want to be a good communicator, or a great communicator. And sometimes that means forcing yourself to not have anything to lean on, but that moment you have with the camera, talking about whatever it is you're talking about, and just completely trusting that over time, the more you do that, the better you become at communicating. And something I've noticed, the YouTubers and content creators who can do those 3 hour, because I've seen some like 3 hour gameplay streams. I ain't
Yes.
watched the whole 3 hours, but um because I have some things to be doing.
Right.
Uh, but the ones who are like 1 to 3 hours doing gameplay, whether it be like Fortnite or WrestleMania or
Yeah.
Madden or whatever it is, um, they're really good at communicating, and they make you feel like you're playing the game with them, if that makes sense. And that's
Yeah.
something I've noticed with your content, like because I've been a subscriber since the start 8 years ago, and just to see how you as a content creator have grown in terms of being a commentator for these shows, like,
Mhm.
one, you were already good from the start, but like now it's like the more videos you've done, you become more confident and polished in that. Could
Thank
you
you.
talk
Thank you.
about how, you know, you've really intentionally or unintentionally made it a point to be a better commentator?
Um, well, first, thank you for your kind words. I really do appreciate it, and I do appreciate your support as well. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
To answer your question here, actually, that actually was intentional. Because when I first started in December, when I first started making these shows, it was in December of 2016. That's why I said I've been doing my niche for 5 years, because
Mhm.
for a couple of years, I'm trying to figure out what the world I want to do. um, so when I found my niche, I've been doing that for 5 years. And commentary was one of the things that I wanted to get right, because I know everything else I can do, like visual, everything else I can do, or English. I promise you, I passed it. Everything else can improve over time. So visual can improve over time. Audio, even just general audio quality, that can improve over time. My use of camera cuts, or what's known as in the universe mode community as highlight reel, that can improve over time. But the main thing that people are going to be hearing over all of that is me. So if I'm starting out video, yelling at the top of my lungs 24/7, somebody's going to get sick and tired of that. But if also by the same token, I'm doing these and I'm like, talking real low, talking real monotone and stuff, ain't no one gonna really want to listen to that either. So if I worked on finding that balance, you may say, like voice wise, in between showing energy when it's needed and simmering down or getting angry if needed, but by properly showing that emotion and being sure what I'm doing is helping new viewers either understand what's going on or understand why a character is doing what they're doing or saying what they're saying, and to help really kind of tell that story. Personally, that's what I feel a
Definitely.
role of commentary is.
That's dope. That's dope. And I'm glad you mentioned like, you know, it being intentional because there are certain things that if you know you have a disability or a health condition,
Mm-hmm.
you have to be intentional about.
That's a
If
good
you
point.
know that you're weak or can improve in one area, that's something you have to be intentional about. Like for me, something that I would do a lot of are verbal fillers. And now it's become a thing where most people don't notice it, but the main time I use verbal fillers is when I have a migraine, when I have a migraine 24/7. So it's something I've had to be intentional about, which is why I like take my sweet time asking questions or even answering questions because I'm like, how can I answer this as concise without the verbal fillers, so that I can communicate effectively. So I definitely feel that, and I think it's a testament to all that intentionality why your channel has grown over time. And shout out to J Dog. He said that you have a great channel, which is true. The
Thank you,
boss
man.
has a good channel. Um, and to that point, I want to know. Well, I'm aware, but I would like for you to tell the audience uh, how, in the first place, you decided on your niche of doing first gameplay and then eventually narrowing it down to WWE Universe customized shows.
Okay. Um, for me, I've always been a wrestling fan growing up. Always, since I was three, been a wrestling fan growing up. And so I, of course, start getting on this YouTube thing, and I start, just watching wrestling videos and things of that nature. And one day, I think I was watching this YouTuber by the name of, I think, Bigger Than Y. I was in there watching him, and doing this gameplay stuff, and I'm like, I kind of want to do this. I kind of want to do this. So I with the told my family, hey, I kind of want to do the YouTube thing. Oh, what you gonna do? I said, I will figure it out. um, and so initially, I started talking about just wrestling or wrestling topics and just giving my general thoughts and opinion. Then I realized, okay, that really wasn't my thing. Wasn't really going anywhere. And plus, there was a whole lot of people, even the people that I was watching, that admittedly at that time were doing that better than I was. But then I eventually got a PlayStation 4, and I was hanging out with one of my friends. He informed me that, hey, dude, you can record gameplay from your PS4. I said, word, for real? He said, yeah. Showed me how to do it. I started doing gameplay stuff, and this was around the time I was doing UFC, Madden, and NBA simultaneously. Then I realized, hey, I got wrestling games. I like doing wrestling games. Let's play the career mode. And after I was doing that, the next thing I realized was like, well, wait a minute. I want to create a show now. For some reason, I want to create a show because even before I started recording it, I was already creating these characters. I was already creating these arenas. I was already creating these championships and just doing it just offline for fun. And I
Mhm.
said, you know what? Let's just put this on YouTube. Why not? Let's put this on YouTube. And so I started technically started that in 2015, but it was not going in the direction that I wanted it to go. And so I say, I'm just gonna cut this off. I'm gonna just stop doing this for now. Let me come back and rethink this thing. So I came back about a year later, 2016, and said, you know what? No pun intended. I'm going to go ahead and just go all out for this thing. And so I put out a video requesting calls and everything. I created some more than the ones I already had. And I started just recording these shows. I started recording and editing these shows, and I realized people were liking it. I was having a blast doing it. And so I just kept rolling with that. And eventually I gained the opportunity to meet some great creators out of it. Hey, what's up, J Dog? I don't know if you're still watching. What's up, bro? And anybody else that may run across this that I've worked with, what's up? And here we are. So it was a combination of me enjoying wrestling and taking something that I was already doing offline and bringing it online.
That's dope. That's dope. And it speaks a lot to how you were able to incorporate something you were passionate about and focus on that. And when I'm talking to a lot of youth or young adults or people even older than me who have a disability or chronic illness, I was like, well, I don't know what I want to do. And usually it's related to content creation or advocacy. And I think sometimes we have this grandiose idea that if we're not doing a traditional method of content creation or working or anything like that, then there's no place for it in these spaces and places.
Right.
But that's a fallacy, because something I've learned is when you take something that you're passionate about, something that you're knowledgeable about, and you have the ability to communicate that passion for it, whether it just be, your presence in the room or in how your creative process, that lends itself to so many opportunities. And I always tell people, like, what are you passionate about? Like, when nobody's watching and you have downtime, what are you spending the most time on? Well, for me, for years, it was consuming YouTube content and creating like graphics just in my free time because I liked it. And I like editing and all that. And then when I finally started my channel, it was kind of like, oh, well, all those things that I was doing in my downtime came together, because I could watch YouTube tutorials all day on how to do things. I find them fascinating. I'm a tech person, so I spend a lot of time, researching the tech that I invest in for this channel. And so all of that kind of came together. And when I finally switched it up and started doing advocacy on the channel, it all kind of fit together, and it worked out. So to someone who is visually impaired and wants to create content or, be an influencer or become a better communicator, what are some things that you would give them, some tidbits of advice?
I would say be willing to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Be willing to learn. Your initial work. I mean, unless you already, not even that. Be willing to learn. Be willing to, understand that. Okay, I'm not gonna start out perfect with this. I'm not gonna start out, great with it. Or I may not start out with the best equipment because you see these videos about sometimes about how do you start a YouTube channel, and it's usually they skip
Oh.
a lot of the other stuff, and you know where I'm going with this. They skip a lot of the other
Mm-hmm.
stuff. They say, "Oh, you need this camera, but I ain't got that kind of money though."
Nope.
Start with your phone. Start small.
Mm-hmm.
Start with your phone. Start with just using your computer and using a computer microphone. I joke around all the time. I'm using the camera. I'm using a better Logitech camera than the one I started with, because that thing. but hey, it's a starting place. I think everybody has a starting place, and so don't be ashamed to start with what you have currently. And be willing to learn,
Yeah,
take
yeah.
constructive criticism, and see what other people are doing as well. See what other people are doing. See how, like, okay, the person doing this, I kind of want to learn how to do that. Either reach out to them or practice and learn. You know.
Yeah. Those are really, really good points. And I'll just touch on one of them that you mentioned, like, be willing to learn. The amount of time I have spent looking at ways to optimize my search engine results, editing, even filming, lighting, just how to communicate and engage with an audience. All this for YouTube. Never mind the other platforms I'm on. Like, is a ridiculous amount. But I think over time, when you're willing to, I don't want to say be obsessed, but be
Mindful?
fervent and intentional about something you're passionate about,
Mm-hmm.
then I believe it pays off. But you have to understand what you're going into it for.
That's
If you're going into it to make money, that's understandable. Yeah, but if you're going into it because one, it's something you enjoy, and two, you're in it for the engagement and the people you can impact,
right?
Then those are, I think, metrics that lends itself to better results than typical vanity metrics of how many likes or how many views. Because you can have 1 million views and nobody really, be impacted by what you said. Everybody wants to be an influencer, but not everybody wants to make an impact. And I find that it takes less effort to influence somebody than it does to impact, which is why a lot of people don't want to be impactful. And so to your point about that, it's a learning process, but don't be the person that thinks you got to learn everything in advance.
That too.
Yeah,
that too.
like don't be. Yeah, I know people who would get 20 research articles, read all of it, or do this. I gotta have this perfect. I gotta do it like this. You know how many people who just who give up like before they even start? And
Crazy.
there are studies that show by the CEO of Think Media, Sean Cannell. He said something that really hit me. He said, just by the nature of you uploading one video, you've done more than a lot of people who have a simple channel. Like, and then you have to think about the more you upload, the better you get. I saw another video by another content creator, and he was talking about the more you upload, the better you get, but focus on being consistent more than anything. Perfection in and of itself is a myth, but focus on consistency. The first 100 videos, focus on making each one of them quality. The first 100 videos, focus on taking your time and putting your heart and your energy into it. And they may be all trash, but guess what? Each video is better than the last if you approach it that way.
Right.
So, yeah.
And it's a good time to review, good time to to make me, all right, let's see what I can do. Let's see what I can do better. I'm again, to kind of go back to my episode and podcast too, I mentioned before. To go back to both of those, I'll sit back and I'll watch them again in the premiere. I'm listening to a premiere and I'm like, okay, that was cool. Or, oh, okay, that was a good question. Or, okay, maybe I could tweak how I word this or whatever. And again, it's all part of learning and growing, not beating yourself up about stuff not being perfect.
Yeah, I definitely hear that. I definitely hear that. So now we're gonna do what I like to call a quick lightning round. Just a couple questions. It's a this or that. Okay.
Okay.
All right. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
SmackDown or Raw?
SmackDown all day. that was easy.
Tell me why.
It was
I agree, but
it was what I grew up with. It was what I grew up with, and admittedly, I always thought it was a better show. I remember coming home on a Friday night, sitting down in front of my TV, hearing the 05 Rise Up song play. It was hype. It was a whole different level. It was cool.
Yeah.
It was cool for me, man. No, all day.
All right. Superstar or NXT?
NXT. Well, I don't know about the 2.0 stuff that they got going now, but NXT personally.
All right. John Cena or Randy Orton?
This is a tough one. Shoot, Randy. My opinion, Randy.
Okay.
I'm a Randy guy.
Okay. Let's see. Mark Henry.
Still rolling and doing this today is incredible.
Yeah. Let's see. Mark Henry or MVP?
Mark Henry, he's always been that dude to me. He's always been that dude, honestly.
I hear you. I hear you. All right. I got a hard one for you.
Shoot.
TLC
Stipulation was okay.
or Money in the Bank?
Oh, are we talking about the stipulation itself, right? The actual matchup
Everything.
itself. Okay, so all right, that's right. Okay, Money in the Bank. Admittedly, the fact that you got 6 guys in there just going just absolutely crazy, and some of the Money in the Bank matches we've seen over the past couple of years end up being insanely good. So I say Money in the Bank. Y'all.
Hey, that's dope. That's dope.
Yeah.
So we almost agreed on everything.
What did you have?
The Randy Orton thing I disagree with, but I digress. So I asked all my guests this question.
I already know.
And I always preface it by saying I don't expect one answer or the other.
Mm-hmm.
Just answer truthfully. And that is, what or who has helped you to become better in spite of your vision impairment and your content creation process?
I've always, first I'll answer the first part. What's helped me to be better, not bitter, or I don't think I would say it is thanks to God that I'm still sitting here. I'm able to sit here and have this conversation with you.
Mm-hmm.
So I say it is because of God that I'm still here. So I owe it all to Him for real. When it comes to people on this earth, it's been having supportive friends and having supportive family that told me, "Hey, bro, keep the thing going. Hey, bro, you're doing a good job. This is, you're doing great stuff. Keep it up. Having that corner of motivation of people that's saying, "Hey, bro, you're doing good. You're doing all right. You're gonna make it work. Gonna be cool." So I would say is. Again, being God has been my relationship with my family and my friends as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And thank you for sharing. And thank you for, spending your time with us on the Better Not podcast, Better Not Bitter podcast family. And man, I want to give you the opportunity to tell them where they can find your channel and all the things you're up to.
Feel free to find me right here on YouTube. If you also want to keep up with me from the social media platform, find me on Twitter. JNW Boss YT on Twitter. And I did the thing I didn't think I was going to do. I got myself a TikTok too. Got myself a TikTok too. Hit me up, JNW Boss on Twitter. You're going to recognize it because you're going to see the same logo in all 3 spots. So it's the same logo. It's been great having me on again. Once again, thank you for allowing me the chance to be on. And until then, the way I would close out my channel, I would say thank you all for watching. Be Boss, and I will highlight you guys later. But this is your podcast.
Hey, like you said, thank you for watching, and thank you for each and every one of you in the live chat. If you're watching this on replay, we appreciate you, especially if you made it this far. And please, please, please go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend.
Yeah.
When you do those things, it helps get the message of the Better Not Bitter podcast out there, and all the things we do in terms of advocacy and awareness. And I appreciate you. Without further ado, live each day with the aim to become better and bitter, and I will catch you next time.